Hello everyone, GoldenNova here. Today, I'd like to give a big ol' thank you to TheHavreCardMan for helping to put together some videos over the past few months. You might have noticed we've been trying to do a lot more streaming over on Twitch, and that takes a lot of time out of my schedule. Thankfully, TheHavreCardMan has been there to help chop up my voice and put in a lot better visuals than I'm able to do myself. So I thought it was about time to cover one of their favorite themes to show my appreciation. Premiering in the April 2010 core set, Duelist Revolution, scraps are a theme that really feel like anyone from Satellite in 5D should have been playing them, but instead just hit the scene as an admittedly really powerful theme that took synchro summoning to the next level, by blowing up their own cards. Boy, we just love dipping back into that well, huh? But sarcasm about recycled mechanics aside, this theme has been quite the fan favorite over the years, spanning its time as a competitive powerhouse to the times it manages to slip into modern metagames to disastrous effect. So let's sort through the refuse to see what we've got on our hands, see how we can piece it all together, then find out what salvage we can add to this pile. It's time to trash our opponent with scraps. But before we continue, a quick reminder to please like and subscribe if you've enjoyed my content so far. We're on the road to 100,000 subscribers, and there's no better way to get there than on our duel runners. Our next stop is 40k, which means Leo and Luna Explained, where we'll be covering Ancient Fairy Dragon's companions, the Power Tool Dragons, Morphtronics, and any other cards that are more than meets the eye. We've also got our Discord, where I might have already said too much. I also have a Twitch where you can join me for viewer duels, progression pulls, and chaos draft pulls for the foreseeable future. And don't forget about my Patreon, where you can gain access to my videos early, reach some of these milestones, as well as helping to determine which videos I make. Thank you all so much for watching, and now, back to the video. Part 1. What a piece of junk! So what's the deal with scraps? Well, they're a series of Earth attribute monsters who I wish I could say are all machines because, well, look at them! But despite that, they actually land across a wide spectrum of types, so not much generic support to be had here. However, they do all share a common through line of wanting to destroy your own cards for value. Some of them get a differently named scrap monster back from the grave when destroyed by a scrap card's effect, which I'll be referring to as recycling from now on, to save me from repeating that same sentence over and over again. Others do the destroying, while some are able to do both at once, all with the eventual end goal of summoning some particularly powerful boss monsters that can float into even more scraps. Basically, it's hard to get rid of anything in this deck because it all sparks joy. Well, most of it sparks joy. Scraps actually have a lot of cards from outside the theme proper muscling in on their search results, so we aren't covering anything associated with Scrap Iron or Junk Warrior, you can see Yugioh Explained for that, as well as anything that can't meaningfully be run in the deck. Got it? Good. Let's start off by talking about Scrap Mind Reader, a level 1 machine tuner monster with 0 attack and defense, and once per turn, while this card is in your grave during your main phase 2, you can select a face-up scrap monster you control, except a copy of itself, destroy that monster, and special summon this card from the grave. And if you do, remove this card from play when it's removed from the field. If this card is used as a synchro material monster, all the other synchro material must be scrap monsters as well. However, it doesn't limit you to only summoning scraps, so if you're running a scrap deck, which you presumably are to get this revival effect going, you're in the clear. You can summon whatever synchro you want. Though I've gotta say, seems like a missed opportunity to make this a psychic. It's a mind reader after all, and the type exists at this point. You don't have the Jinzo excuse. Scrap Searcher is a level 1 winged beast monster with 100 attack and 300 defense, and when a scrap monster you control, except a copy of itself, is destroyed and sent to the grave while this card is in the grave, you can special summon this card from your grave. And when special summoned by any means, you destroy all face-up monsters you control, except scrap monsters. Seems weird that it wouldn't also help you destroy scrap monsters since that's their whole deal, though they inadvertently created a way to trigger on-destruction effects of monsters in other themes, so this can end up being an enabler instead of a disabler. Card design really has come a long way, huh? But I feel like there's a disconnect between the card and what the card does. Like, it doesn't grab you a card from the deck, it doesn't reveal any hidden information about your opponent. What the heck is it searching for? Scrap Worm is a level 2 insect tuner monster with 500 attack and 100 defense, and this card can attack directly. If this card attacks, it's destroyed at the end of the battle phase, and it recycles, which is triggered by its own self-destruction effect. So it's a nice leveled tuner if you need it, or you can go in for some chip damage while getting back a card. I've also gotta wonder if some of these were made as, like, references to other monsters. Like, look at this and tell me it's not someone's junkyard replica of Dungeon Worm. Scrap Goblin is a level 3 Beast Warrior tuner monster with 0 attack and 500 defense, and this card can't be destroyed by battle. If this face-up defense position monster is selected as an attack target, destroy this card during the end of the battle phase, and it recycles. Once again, its own self-destruction effect does a good job of triggering it, and because it doesn't destroy itself until the end of the battle phase, it makes for an excellent blocker. This is also the best monster in terms of design. Not mechanically, art-wise. And not in scraps, the entire game. It's got a little faucet nose! That's peak design. Scrap Hunter is a level 3 machine monster with 1600 attack and 400 defense, and once per turn you can select a face-up scrap monster you control, except this card, destroy it, and send a tuner monster from your deck to the grave. Hunter's a pretty good way to get a tuner into your hand, because if you send a scrap one to the grave with this effect, you can pop the appropriate scrap monster, and then you can fast-track that tuner back to your hand. And this isn't limited to just sending scrap tuners to the grave. Any tuner is an eligible target. So if you want to generate a Mecha Phantom Beast token by sending O-Lion to the grave, be my guest. I'm sure there are some other off-theme tuners you can send, but I'll leave that up to you to hunt them down. Scrap Recycler is a level 3 machine monster with 900 attack and 1200 defense, and when this card is normal or special summoned, you can send a machine monster from your deck to the grave. And once per turn, you can shuffle 2 level 4 Earth Machine monsters from your grave into your deck to draw a card. Now, this is much more associated with Machinas and Gadgets, as it was released in a structure deck alongside those cards. And its most recent and breakout hit was being a 1-card Orchist combo. But they did name this a scrap monster, so it does fit in. Especially because, while we don't have a lot of machines, we do have a few. Like, you can send a Scrap Mind Reader from your deck to the grave with this, at which point you can pop Scrap Recycler to revive it. So I guess it was important that they put that restriction on Mind Reader. Huh. Scrap Beast is a level 4 Beast tuner monster with 1600 attack and 1300 defense, and if this face-up defense position monster is targeted for an attack, it's destroyed at the end of the battle phase, and it recycles. This is the same effects as Goblin, minus having battle destruction immunity. So I guess this is just a bigger monster to help with different levels for synchro summoning? Looks like they're not just recycling their monsters, but their effects as well, huh? Oh, damn, that should have been the joke for Recycler. Scrap Chimera is a level 4 beast monster with 1700 attack and 500 defense, and this card can't be used as synchro material except for the synchro summon of a scrap monster, and all other synchro material must also be scrap monsters. And when this card is normal summoned, you can select a scrap tuner monster in your grave and special summon it. Boy, they went overboard with those restrictions, but today we don't have to worry about them too much, because back when they printed this, they had no idea what future-proofing was. Whatever you revive can be used for Xyz and Link summons, and since one of your revival targets is Beast, a level 4 monster that just so happens to be a tuner, you have some great options to choose from. Oh, and I guess it's good for our synchros too. But can we be real for a second? Aren't all the monsters in this theme scrap chimeras? Like, they're all a combination of different kinds of trash. You'd think the definition would stick. Scrap Kong is a level 4 beast monster, and when this card is normal summoned, destroy it. But it also recycles, so normal summoning this effectively puts a different scrap back into your hand. And once you special summon it, you've got a pretty big body. Oh, and a good reference making the chest piece a barrel, designers. I see what you did there. Scrap Orthros is a level 4 beast tuner monster with 1700 attack and 1100 defense that can't be normal summoned or set, and must first be special summoned from your hand while you control a scrap monster. And if summoned this way, you target a scrap monster you control and destroy it. And Orthros recycles. So you can either have it target itself, or a different scrap monster to make sure all your levels line up. It's very economical for your deck, but in practice, it really is a dog-eat-dog with two heads world out there. Scrap Raptor is a level 4 dinosaur tuner monster with 1400 attack and 1000 defense, and it can target a monster you control, destroy it, and also during your main phase this turn, you can normal summon a scrap monster in addition to your normal summoner set. This card also recycles, but instead of grabbing a different scrap monster from your grave, it adds a non-tuner scrap monster or the field spell Scrap Factory from your deck to your hand. This is currently the most modern of the scrap cards, being released in Lightning Overdrive, and the hype this thing had on release you would not believe. Though considering this was copies 4, 5, and 6 of Scrap Recycler, which itself could do a boatload of things, the initial assessment was valid. Heck, you could search this with friggin' Fossil Dig for crying out loud, which would end up being copies 7, 8, and 9 of Scrap Recycler. Unfortunately, it's yet to see its day in the meta landscape, but that doesn't mean it's any less of a combo machine. Truly, it's a clever piece of design for a clever girl. Scrap Shark is a level 4 fish monster with 2100 attack and 0 defense, and when an effect monster's effect or spell or trap card are activated, destroy this face-up card, and it recycles. But this also works differently. Instead of adding a different scrap monster from your grave to your hand, Shark sends a scrap monster from your deck to the grave, presumably to set up future plays. It's a shame this card is so fragile, but in a simplified game state, 2100 is a big stat line to be throwing around. Though I guess now I know why all the Shark cards rely on attributes to denote what they work with, instead of committing to a Shark archetype, because they'd have to let this card in. Yee. Scrap Golem is a level 5 rock monster with 2300 attack and 1400 defense, and once per turn you can target a level 4 or lower scrap monster in your grave and special summon it to either player's field. Now, that sounds odd, but if you're already familiar with Scrap Dragon, you might be guessing why we'd want to gift a scrap to our opponent. But in general, you're going to be summoning the monsters to your field, and for good reason. This sees play even today as a key part of any scrap engine, recycling recyclers to send more machines to the grave. Note also that Golem lacks a hard once per turn clause, so leaving the field and coming back means you can do that again. And, most importantly, keeps all your beverages cool throughout your regional run. Gotta have that gamer fuel, Crispy! Scrap Soldier is a level 5 warrior tuner monster with 2100 attack and 700 defense, and this card can't be used as synchro material except for a scrap synchro monster. And if this face-up defense position card is selected for an attack target, destroy this card during the end phase, and it recycles. Hey, what gives? I know I made the effect recycling joke earlier, but we've already done this twice! You can't just do it again! I mean, I guess this means you can special summon this with Scrap Chimera to reach some bigger levels, but we have got to find something more for these cards to do. We can't keep expecting them to soldier on like this. Scrap Breaker is a level 6 machine monster with 2100 attack and 700 defense, and if your opponent controls a monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. And when special summoned this way, you select a face-up scrap monster you control and destroy it. Now, importantly, this does not recycle, so you can't just have it pop itself for an effect like Orthros can. Thankfully though, if you are able to land this with a scrap to spare, Breaker is a lot of non-tuner levels you can use to climb that synchro ladder. Or if you're so inclined, rank 6 Xyz. I know that's not Scrap's thing, but if you want to find cool combos, you're gonna have to break the mold. Part 2. Shootin' the Scrap. Alright, now it's time to cover the Synchro monsters, some of the cards that Scraps are most known for. Scrap Archfiend is a level 7 Fiend Synchro monster with 2700 attack and 1800 defense, requiring generic material. And that's it. It's a non-effect monster, which may seem underwhelming, but this actually found its way into a lot of lists, acting as the strongest generic level 7 Synchro you could make in a lot of decks that didn't involve using a board wipe. I'm looking at you, Black Rose Dragon. And bonus, because it was a non-effect monster, it's immune to Fiendish Chain, which was seeing a lot of play at the time. This is also another TCG exclusive card, back when those were additions to existing archetypes, rather than making up new themes. So even when they have no effect, TCG exclusives are still powerful and cool. Hell yeah. But the real iconic spot has to belong to Scrap Dragon, a level 8 dragon synchro monster with 2800 attack and 2000 defense, requiring generic material. Once per turn, you can target a card you control and a card your opponent controls and destroy them. And when this card in your possession is destroyed by your opponent's card and sent to the grave, target a non-synchro scrap monster in your grave and special summon that target. Everyone, if you hate Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer today, then meet the piece of card design that started it all in the past. This saw massive representation in any deck that supported synchro summoning as not only a big monster, but was a way to trade a card you had and weren't using anymore to get rid of a problem card your opponent controlled. And at any point in the game you want to destroy your own cards while also getting rid of an opponent's, this always seems to find a way back into the game. though nowadays it's dependent on if DPE is an option. So everyone, give a big salute to Scrap Dragon. Thank you for making descendants that make the Scythe lock possible. Scrap Twin Dragon is a level 9 Dragon Synchro monster with 3000 attack and 2200 defense, requiring a Scrap Tuner and one or more non-tuner monsters as material. Once per turn, you can select a card you control and 2 cards your opponent controls, destroy your card, and return the other 2 cards your opponent controls to the hand. And if this card is destroyed by your opponent's card and sent to the grave, you can select a non-synchro scrap monster in your grave and special summon it. Because of the Scrap Tuner requirement, this saw a bit less representation. But it's even more powerful. Bouncing has the upside of not triggering destruction effects, well, at least your opponent's, and says a big goodbye to extra deck monsters. Damn, Twin-Headed Behemoth sure has come a long way, huh? Atomic Scrap Dragon is a level 10 Dragon Synchro monster with 3200 attack and 2400 defense, requiring a Scrap Tuner and 2 or more non-tuner monsters as material. Once per turn, you can select a card you control and up to 3 cards in your opponent's grave, popping your card and returning those cards in your opponent's grave back into the deck. It also floats into another non-synchro scrap monster in your grave if destroyed by your opponent. This is some massive graveyard hate, but honestly it's not as powerful as its smaller counterparts. Like, taking cards out of your opponent's grave is good resource denial, if it's applicable, but doesn't really solve a board state. 3200 attack is enough to walk over a lot of threats, but any kind of hindrance to battle will nullify this. It's a real shame they went through all the trouble of installing a third head just to end up with a worse effect. You'd think nuclear power would be stronger, huh? That's all of our synchros, but thankfully we've also got a bit of modern flair to add to the theme. A Link monster. Scrap Wyvern is a level 2 Dragon Link monster with 1700 attack, requiring any 2 monsters, with at least one being a scrap monster. It can target a scrap monster in your grave and special summon it, then destroy a card you control. And if another face-up scrap monster is destroyed by a card effect, except during the damage step, you can special summon a scrap monster from your deck, then destroy a card on the field. This is, without a doubt, an outrageous piece of support to staple onto this theme. Running Scrap Recycler as an engine helps you get easy access to this with a second monster, which can set off a chain of events where you revive the Scrap Recycler, pop it to the second half of the first effect, which triggers Scrap Wyvern's other effect because a scrap monster was destroyed by a card effect, summoning out a Scrap Golem and getting to pop an opponent's card. And from that point, you can revive the Scrap Recycler for another Foolish, and now you're threatening 4 pieces of Link material. It's truly a wild monster, and seems to prove that, as the Scrap Dragon line gets older, their effects get worse. Part 3. Sifting through the scrap heap for playables. Now it's time for our spell and trap support. Guts of Steel is a normal spell that has you selecting 3 scrap monsters in your grave. Your opponent picks one for you to special summon to either player's field, and you remove the rest from play. So you pick 3 and your opponent gives you the worst one. However, there's nothing saying you can't pick multiple of the same cards. So if you've loaded up your grave enough, then your opponent won't have a choice but to give you what you want. Well, not a real one anyway. Strangely though, the weirdest thing about this card is that they printed Monster Reborn all this time ago. The recycling is certainly strong with this theme. Scrapyard is a normal spell that adds a Scrap Tuner monster from your deck to your hand. Yeah, just a simple rota for your Scrap Tuners that doesn't have any usage limitations. And that means more copies of Raptor! And Goblin! Ooh, I love this baby boy! Scrap Storm is a quick play spell that targets a scrap monster you control, and on resolution, sends a scrap monster from your deck to the grave. Then you draw a card, then destroy that monster. This might seem like a bit of a mess, but it's actually a profoundly powerful piece of support. Like, the Foolish effect being included means that, if you intend to pop a scrap that recycles, you are setting up the scrap you want to get back, which replaces the destroyed monster. And because of the draw, you're replacing the spent spell, making this another in a long line of archetypal draw 2 spells. So not only is this a nifty engine card, it also helps you make the most of some of our more enthusiastic members. Kong and Fish will explode at the drop of a hat, so why not chain this to their own self-destruction effect so you aren't popping a scrap that's going to stick around for longer. Combined with the fact that you can use this to pop a scrap that's going to otherwise be destroyed by a non-scrap effect, and you can see why this card would take the entire theme by storm. Scrap Sheen is a quick play spell that selects a face-up scrap monster you control and destroys it, and all face-up scrap monsters you control gain 1000 attack until the end phase. Wow, this is an interesting battle trick, not gonna lie. 1000 is already pretty good for a single monster, but spreading it out across all of our scraps? That's some dangerous levels of attack boosting and could lead to some swift OTKs if your opponent isn't careful. I was gonna say that the theme could use a bit more polish, but now I think that might be overkill. Scrap Lube is a continuous spell that selects a scrap monster in your grave and special summons it, but that monster's effects are negated. When this card is removed from the field, destroy the summoned monster, and when that monster is removed from the field, destroy this card. And you can't conduct your battle phase the turn you activate this card. I was so on board with this card until that last line of text. We're not made of turns, you know, we can't just go around wasting battle phases on revival effects. For the time, it was pretty good and would actually help you recover your resources and take control of the board. Being able to pop a card with Scrap Dragon each turn was more impactful than it was today, so losing a turn to get the materials to summon the Big Bungler was totally worth it. But now it's really only good for making people chuckle because they called this card Scrap Lube. Go on, let it out. I know you want to laugh. I had a few myself. Is it immature? A little, but that's what makes it funny. Scrap Factory is a field spell that gives all scrap monsters a 200 attack and defense boost, and when any number of face-up scrap monsters on the field are destroyed by a card effect and sent to the grave, except during the damage step, you can special summon a scrap monster from your deck. This nifty tool helps keep your field stocked up while still getting your recycling effects, which is great because you aren't going to be using those reclaimed resources if you bite the dust. And you can get any scrap monster with this, from the enormous breaker to the humble golem to the itty bitty mind reader. It's super useful, and I just wish it wasn't attached to such a cavalcade of horrors. I don't care if this art is an excuse to get a Terminator reference, you let my little scrap goblin go! Scrap Crash is a normal trap card that can be activated when a scrap monster you control is destroyed and sent to the grave, and it destroys all face-up spell and trap cards on the field. Yeah, this affects both players, so you might end up nixing your own Scrap Factory or Scrap Lube. This can also get rid of annoying floodgates, having a Mystic Mine out certainly never hurt anyone, but at that point just run regular back row removal. Preferably the ones that can also hit face-down cards. Trust me, stick with this card and you'll watch your card economy crash and burn. Scrap Rage is a normal trap card that can be activated only during damage calculation if a defense position scrap monster on the field is being attacked. It gains 2000 defense and is destroyed at the end of the battle phase. Wait, that's just Scrap Goblin's effect again! But now you can apply it to anything, which I guess isn't so bad. It kinda sucks when using it with one of the scraps that doesn't recycle, but it does trigger the effects of the ones that do, which is especially helpful if they don't have a way to do it themselves. Now you just have to wait for your opponent to walk into it. So really, I can empathize, because if my support was this situational, I'd be pretty mad too. Part 4. Scrapped Ideas. So that's all the scrap cards, but what do we do with them? Well, modern sensibilities would focus on running Recycler, Golem, Raptor, Chimera, and Wyvern as an engine in combo decks that provides a silly amount of material without locking you out of anything. And if you want to see something like that, I'd highly recommend checking out TheHavreCardMan's deck profile and combo showcase for it, because you can do some ridiculous things in Chop Shop, a deck that combines Scraps, Orchist, Machina, and Phantom Knights. And while it's in the nature of scraps to be a combination of a bunch of different parts, I'd like to see how we can make this operate as the head of a pack, and not just as an accessory. So what can we play to help them out? Well, we're lacking in strong OTK tools. Our monsters are moderately powerful, but don't pack enough of a punch to end the game in a single turn, so control seems like our best option. As such, Floodgate should be the name of the game, and we play well with quite a few. Avoid Rivalry of Warlords if possible, but Gozen match lines up with our mono-earth attributes, and because of our varied typing, there can be only one can be absolutely silly. And if any of them start getting in your way, Scrap Dragon is a pro at picking up your floodgates and chucking them at a problem card so you can keep playing. There's also never been a better time to lean on Skill Drain, which is now at 3 at time of recording. This'll keep our Kong and Shark from blowing themselves up, which trades out their On Destruction effect for big normal summonable bodies. And since their recycling effects trigger in Grave, we just need to ensure we use cards like Scrap Storm to destroy them and get their effects. Another bonus we get for being mono-earth is that we can utilize Vernalizers, or as they're being localized as, Vernisylphs, which I guess is a better name. Anyway, we get all kinds of revival and milling effects that are compounded by protections as long as we can find Vernisylph Corolla to treat all of our scraps as Vernisylphs. And of course, if we can get Vera, the Verniself goddess, into play, we'll be swimming in card advantage and negations. One of the reasons Scrap Raptor was so lauded on release was because it allowed you to access some very powerful dinosaur cards. If we're using Fossil Dig to search this out, you could also run Soul Eating Oviraptor as another way to search, Lost World to cut off your opponent's targeting, Baby Ceresaurus as a target for Lost Wind's Destruction replacement, or even just Double Evolution Pill to banish Raptor and any other scrap to summon Ultimate Conductor Tyranno. It lets you shut off a horde of non-link monsters at the flip of a switch, and while UCT isn't a scrap monster, and thus won't trigger our recycling effects, getting those cards back is a breeze. As for a silly tech pick, how about playing Supply Squad? You're blowing up all your monsters already, so you might as well get a draw for your troubles. The issue with cards like this is that they're basically upstart goblins the turn you use it, to which I say, well, people want to be playing more upstart goblins. True, this is less reliable by nature of not being able to just activate the draw, but that's traded off for long-term gains. The longer your opponent chooses not to do anything about it, the more incidental card advantage you get. And that's all I have to say about scraps. They've got killer plays, even if half of those plays end up killing themselves, but when you're made of numerous mechanical bits and bobs, it's only a matter of time before they pick themselves up, put themselves back together, and go get smashed again for the glory of synchro summoning. Now, if someone could explain to me why a lot of these aren't treated as machines, I'd be super grateful. But now, I want to hear what you all have to say. Are scraps the building blocks of a new engine of victory, or are they destined for the slag heap? Let me know in the comments, and if you haven't already, please make sure to like this video and subscribe to show your support, ring that bell so you don't miss an episode, and share this video with someone you know who loves Yu-Gi-Oh! It really does a lot to help me out. Today's episode was brought to you by my lovely patrons, including this month's illustrious Quasar Commander, Harry, the Ominous Benefactor, Nebula Navigators, 3rd Dynasty, Adam Zajdel, Ashling Waltz, Avi Chali, Cryptic Gamer, Eric, Frankie, Genesis Yu-Gi-Oh!, Gloomba 331, Great Big Pillock, Howling Zangetsu, Inblink, Ironic, John Manji, Julius Sneezer, Larakia, Meteornus, Mighty Action X, Panther J, Rebel King Lucifer, Ruxith Sarani, The Fresh Prince of Conair, The Wizard Moose, True Neutral, Tyler Cranston and Xander Wolfensberger, Cosmic Crusaders, Bear Sharktopus Studios, Chaz Ghost, Corbinisms, Cozy Boat 275, Jesus Garcia, Manga Pages, Marion James E. Picata, Nitromo, RGS, Rem T. Bright, Shooting Star 3300, Star-Lord 777, Tyler Martin and the Legendary Raven, as well as the wonderful Starlight Explorers you see on screen now. I'm only able to continue doing this thanks to the support of these lovely people, and if you'd like to be a part of these credits, as well as help me in my journey to cover all of Yu-Gi-Oh's archetypes, please check out my YouTube membership or Patreon links in the description to see if I have anything you'd like on offer. And if you'd like to see another video about another down-to-earth strategy that loves synchro summoning, check out this video I did covering Karakuris. And if you want to see two Yugi-tubers going at it, check out Noah Jenk and I's latest series Progression Polls, where your voice shapes the format. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.